Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, after a break that we had during the holidays, we are very happy to resume this e-seminar series with our great speaker today, Professor Bijan Najafi from the Baylor College of Medicine. So before going to his talk, I just want to say that, so probably most of you know about the platform. There is a ask a question box on the bottom of your screen. You can ask your question during the talk. And so we have a Q&A session at the end of the talk. So to ask your question to Dr. Najafi. And then there is a chat box also somewhere on your screen, probably if you're using the PC on the right hand side of your screen. You can chat, you can introduce yourself, you can say from where you're joining, and this is kind of, very friendly environment to introduce yourself to other people in this e-seminar series. So by that, I would like also to thank our sponsor, Montreal Transmedtech Institute, who sponsors this e-seminar series from almost the beginning of its start. And to get the most updated information for the upcoming seminar series, please follow our Twitter account with the hashtag with the account hashtag TransLBME. And also you can follow us, the organizer, Dr. Akbari, myself, so we get the information for the upcoming seminar series. So by that, I would like to introduce our speaker today. Professor Najafi is currently serving with the Baylor College of Medicine, Michael DeBakey Department of Surgery as a tenured professor and director of clinical research in the Division of the Vascular Surgery and Endovascular Therapy, and co-director of the NSF IUCRC Center to Stream Healthcare in Place, C2 SHIP. He is also serving as an adjunct professor at the School of Engineering, Rice University in Texas, adjunct professor at the College of Engineering and Medicine, University of Arizona in Arizona, and he completed his Ph.D. in Bioengineering, followed by a postdoctoral fellowship in applied biomechanics at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Switzerland, and in neuroscience at Harvard University in Neuromotor Control Lab. He has a broad background in bioengineering with a specific training and expertise in the development of novel medical devices, software technologies, and remote patient monitoring technologies. He has published over 200 scientific publications in peer-reviewed journals or conference proceedings with more than 11K citation. His H-index is more than 52. He filed more than 20 patents, issued pending or provisional patents. He has been PI or a key investigator on over 150 industrial, national, and international grants with the grants worth of more than $130 million. Thanks to his contribution in successful translation of technologies for various clinical applications, he has been awarded as one of the most influential health and medical leaders by Tucson Local Media in 2014. He has also been included in the Stanford List of top 100,000 scientists, top 2% in the world in the year of 2019. Okay, so in the publication in PLOS Biology in 2020, and listed amongst the top 1% of the scholars worldwide in 2021 by the Expertscape's PubMed-based algorithm in the area of the leg ulcer and diabetic peripheral neuropathy. So his biography is going on, and his achievements. But I stop here for the sake of time, and I invite him to share his screen with us. Professor Najafi, mic is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Uman, for the kind introduction. I really appreciate, again, to you and Mohsen to give me this opportunity to share some of the experience that we have in my team and also some of our collaboration I share my screen. Can you see well my screen?
Yes, perfect. Yes.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure being with you virtually. Again, thanks, Mohsen and Human, for giving me this opportunity to present some of the work that we are doing here. What I'm hoping to cover today is talking about decentralized care delivery model that my team, with collaboration with others, are working on. I truly believe that that might be the future of the healthcare in the US and worldwide. And there are a lot of room for innovation. So I'm hoping by end of my talk, I give you a couple of examples of the work that we are doing in this area, and hopefully fostering or triggering enthusiasts for collaboration that come together to address some of the challenges that we have in current healthcare system. But before going further, let's see that whether my slide is working. Human asked me to give some actually overview of my academic career and how I built my career. So first I will start with that. I'm Iranian. I born in Iran and raised in Iran. I got my bachelor degree and master degree from two different universities with the same logo, but in two different locations. One is in Isfahan, is this one University of Technology, and one in Tehran, in Sharif University, in electrical engineering and then biomedical engineering. Then I moved to Switzerland. I started my PhD at EPFL in Lausanne, is École Polytechnique Fédérale de Lausanne. It's a French part of the Switzerland's beautiful location. During that period, I became familiar with concept of wearable technology and digital health. I would like to share a story there. We probably were the first group who suggested the use of wearable technology for assessment of walking quality that we call in gait analyzing. And I remember that I was a graduate student. I attended in a very prestigious meeting in Orfield that named ISPGR, is International Society for Gait and Posture. It was in Maastricht, Netherlands. And I got a podium presentation. I was so proud of myself as a graduate student. I got a podium presentation in that prestigious meeting. And almost 90% of the talks were about how we model the movement of the skin to reduce the artifact during motion tracking, how many markers we should place on the skin to track the movement of the body, how many cameras we should place, how we synchronize the cameras, how we can actually remove the artifact and more accurately estimated the motor dysfunction. And then I went to the podium and I said that, you know what, you don't need any of those. You just snap a couple of sensors on the body, and out of the gait lab, you assess motor performance. And obviously, it wasn't perceived very well in that meeting. Even I remember a very actually high scholar person in biomechanics. I don't name him, but he told me that how naive I am to think that by just a couple of sensors, I can characterize the motor disability. Long story short, about 15 years later, I attended the same meeting, and almost 90% of the talks were about wearable technology, how we can quantify motor disability using the sensors. So the way that I'm highlighting here is to remind for junior investigators that sometimes you may see that a high senior person may say that the research that you're doing might be useless or may not have impact. But if you really believe that, be persistent and continue. It's great to be head of the care. And when we started in 1998 to work on this technology, we didn't have many centers to work on that one. Now you're seeing that almost every industry, including large industries like Google, Facebook, Apple, they're working on wearable technology. They're trying to see how we can quantify mobility, quantify health metric, stress, sleep, and many more just by using wearable technology. After my graduation, I became lecturer in the same institution, but soon I realized that this is this is not what I really like. I mean, I spending too much time on teaching. Of course, at the beginning, I really enjoyed that, but But then I really missed research. And then I realized that also I'm under shadow of my mentor when I'm doing research. But despite that, I have great mentor, very supportive, but I feel that I need to make another move. So I decided to step back, and I moved to United States and started my postdoc at Harvard. Of course, it was very challenging at the beginning. It's not very easy and fun that when you have a good paying salary job, you come back to student salary. So my salary at Harvard even was lower than salary that I got during my graduate program, but it was the best decision that I did. At Harvard, I add some complementary training to my expertise. I learned about neuroscience and how our brain help us to learn a new skills and retain the skills. That shaped many of my career later on, and in particular in the area of the telerehabilitation that I will explain in a minute. Then I started my first faculty appointment as assistant professor at Dr. Scholl College of Pediatric Medicine at Rosalind Franklin University in Chicago. It was very interesting career choice because by training I'm engineer, and I started medical school. I needed to teach to medical students. As you can imagine, the review of my classes were awful on the first year, but then following years improved. But it really helped me to understand how to speak with doctors and medical field, and also appreciate that sometimes the problems are too simple, but it seems that we tend to use most complex solution for a trivial problem. But if you understand the problem, you can find often an easier and more practical solution. Then I moved to Arizona, in Tucson, University of Arizona. It was a great choice for me. I joined as associate professor, and then I was promoted to full professor there. It helped me to diversify my research in the area of the cancer, in the area of the osteoarthritis, in dementia, and Alzheimer's disease. And even we collaborated with architects or designer that how we design a building to improve health and well-being. Then my boss moved to Baylor College of Medicine, and he encouraged me to build a research arm for division of vascular surgery. So I accepted that, and I joined Baylor College of Medicine toward the end of 2015, December 2015, and now I'm there. So just a quick overview about Baylor College of Medicine for those who may not be familiar with. So Baylor College of Medicine, part of Texas Medical Center. We used to say that everything is bigger in Texas. And there is no any exception for the medical center. We are the largest medical complex in the world, with over 10 million patients in cancer per year, over 180,000 annual surgery, and more than 750,000 ER visits per year. So if you are in the medical device, if you are in data scientists and looking in medical field, probably that's the location that you want to be. So this picture is not the picture of the city of Houston. Actually, city of Houston is on top of the picture. This is Texas Medical Center with many hospitals there. This building is thanks to legacy of a Lebanese American surgeon, vascular surgeon named Michael E. DeBakey. Some of you maybe know him. He actually invented coronary bypass operation that now is saving tons of the lives there. He was the inventor of the first artificial heart that was successfully operated in US back to 1960. And he also was inventor of ventricular assisted device that now is called LVAD, with collaboration with engineers at the Rice University. And then he was so successful and so famous that in 1960, Baylor College of Medicine that was affiliated with Baylor University in Dallas, it became complete independent entity as a College of Medicine. Currently is a rank 1 College of Medicine in Texas and top 20 in the nation. And many innovative research, in fact, going on in the area of the genomic and heart problem is coming from Baylor College of Medicine. So it's very large. This is, again, some of the affiliated hospitals. This is the main campus of Baylor College of Medicine. We are actually part of the St. Luke's Medical Center. That's a very large hospital chain. Texas Children's Hospital is the largest children's hospital in the U.S. Texas Heart Institution. This is a quite new building. My office is located on this beautiful glass building that's walking distance on the VA. Is Michael DeBakey Veteran Affair. That is one of the largest VA hospital in the nation. But it's not end here. Now we are moving to Texas Medical Center 3. It's an undergoing construction. Started last year. It's over $3 billion project that anticipated that will have economic impact of more than $5 billion. The idea here is to actually creating like a Silicon Valley for medical device and also data science on the medical field, and makes sense with the huge hospitals industry that they are in the same location that is in reality. Actually, this is happening in the back of the building that my lab and office is located. So these are some of the affiliates with our Baylor College of Medicine, obviously St. Luke Hospital, Texas Heart, Texas Children's Hospital, MD Anderson, Memorial Hermann, and many more, and as well as academic partners. Baylor College of Medicine doesn't have engineering school; it's a standalone, but has very close, actually, collaboration with Rice University. And often, when we are doing engineering works, we have a joint appointment with Rice University. So let's talk now about the group that I built at Baylor. When I came to Baylor, I said that I don't want to have a traditional lab. I would like to build partnership and collaboration. So instead of the lab, I have an open lab, a consortium that I call it ICAP. It's Interdisciplinary Consortium on Advanced Motion Performance. Our slogan is that we can't manage what we can't measure. We believe that this is true in economy and politics as well as in medicine. But in medicine, still, many of the assessments based on eyeball of the doctors because we don't have a practical system to do the measurement. So we are designing a variety of the wearable technology from a smart sock, a smart shoes, a smart boot, to, as I mentioned, even designing a smart home for improving health and well-being. And we have a diverse research on many areas. The core and philosophy of ICAM is bring engineers with direct appointment with College of Medicine, not in College of Engineering, it's College of Medicine, to closely interact with doctors, with surgeons. We believe that the doctors can tell us what is the true need, not engineers, but engineers can provide solution for that problems. And of course, it's very important to partner with industry to scale up the innovation that we have. So this is our webpage. Please visit our webpage. And I demonstrate that this is a productive consortium. I mean, I know that some engineers are scared that whether somebody else may steal their idea, but I believe that this pie becomes so big that everybody can benefit from it. So since we formed here, of course, we have many grants, but there are portion of this grant that came. And see, that portion of the pie was quite significant. We have over $30 million grant. Even several grants internationally, several clinical trial support, many clinical protocols. Many of them now end up to have a medical device that now is used worldwide. Many publications, very strong collaboration with industry, and also building strong infrastructures for trainees to really learn about the true problem, not being the lab, simulate on some healthy subject, actually coming and see patient and really designing some tools that can help patient. We have regularly many postdocs. We have pre-residents that is coming and join us, pre-med. Even we have many medical doctors overseas that would like to engage in the research that join our team. We are hiring at least every year. We have over 4 postdocs that we are hiring. And if you're interested, please join our website and send me a note and come to a center. But we design variety of wearable technology from a smart carpet to smart socks to smart shoes. And some of them I am hoping to present in the next 30 minutes during my talk. So what I'm hoping today to accomplish is to give you some a snapshot about a promise of digital health to improve health, well-being, and healing of our patients with chronic illness. Because of the sake of time, I will select two conditions. One is diabetic foot ulcers, but the other one is dementia. But we have a wide range of the research, starting from infant with autism to, as I mentioned, very old age with dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So let's first talk about the problem about diabetic foot and aging population. I would like to start first with borrowing a quote from my favorite French philosopher, Auguste Comte. He lived in the 19th century, and he said, and I quote, "Demography is destiny." And now in 21st century, we are witnessing a significant change in demography. The world continues to experience an unprecedented and sustained change in the age structure of global population. For instance, if you look at the percentage of global population that are older than 65 years old, this population is anticipated to be doubled by next 20 years and reaching to 20% of the population. The people continue to live longer and older. So if you look at even in US, some of the states, more than 20% of the population are older than 65 years old. And some of the countries like Switzerland, Italy, Japan, they are dealing with a significant portion of older adults. Every day in the United States, 10,000 individuals reach to age of 65 years old. So if you would like to work in the area of the medical, maybe aging and focus on aging research is one of the areas that you want to invest. And definitely we need to have much more innovation in this area. But despite of this change in demography, if you look at our healthcare delivery model, it still is based on the model back to 1950 and 1960. We don't have much change in the healthcare delivery model. And during pandemic, we saw the problems of this care delivery model that center around the hospital. Everyone for providing care for receiving care need to come to clinic. If you would like to refill your prescription, you need to come to clinic. If you want to come for preventive care, you need to come to clinic. And that's a problem. CDC reported that when the pandemic started, 4 in 10 US adults who had chronic illness, they didn't come to clinic for preventive care because they were fear to be infected by COVID-19. So it's highlighting that this model is failing, and we need to come up with a better new model that is decentralized model. So in response to the challenge, actually we came up with a partnership center. This is a center that funded by National Science Foundation last year. The idea is to change the model of the care delivery model that is currently centered to the hospital to make it the model around care in place, center on the patient home. And this is not a science fiction. This is reality. Already there are many innovative technologies in this area. We are hearing that, for example, a company in Boston, they created ICU at home. They bring ventilator, everything ICU, and now we are doing some surgery at home. We are seeing telemedicine that is magnified. We have over, I'm guessing, 1,000% increase in use of telemedicine in the VA hospital system during pandemic. Basically, every veteran, they have one experience of telemedicine. We have home visit, we have home monitoring, this wellness program, a smartwatch that we are using that don't measure actually blood pressure, continuously glucose monitoring, and many more. So these technology are there, but an artificial intelligence that can utilize this data and can help us to triage the patient that actually need to come to the hospital for timely care. So we formed this center with partnership with 5 academic institutions, including Baylor College of Medicine, and also Caltech, University of Arizona, and University of Southern California, and University of Missouri. They share the resources. The idea is creating a mini R&D for industries that want to work in this aspect. We make it much cheaper, and we can accelerate their innovation to coming to the clinic. And actually, we have a tons of access to the patient, so we can make it quickly transition to actual action. So we have this website. Please visit us. We have weekly think tank meeting. We plan to share also this talk there to learn what's going on in the area of the decentralized care delivery model. But let's give some example that what we are doing at this in my team. So if you look at diabetes, for instance, diabetes is a global health problem. Just think about some of these numbers. If diabetes were a country, it would be the third biggest in the world, with population exceeding of 425 million people, just after China and India. And it's pretty costly. This is a report from American Diabetes Association that suggests that $1 in every $7 spent in healthcare in US spent treating diabetes and its complication. The direct cost in the United States exceeding from $327 billion. And this is the numbers that came from 2018. And believe me, it's not much higher than these numbers even. One of the unappreciated problem with diabetes, I apologize from some of the pictures that we are hearing here. I am trying to have, even the picture is not too bad, but this picture is important to understand that the problem that we are dealing with diabetes. Diabetes has significant impact on feet. Basically, because of diabetes, there is not much blood circulation on lower extremity, that it caused that there is not enough nutrition and oxygen receiving to this peripheral nerve. So the patient may end up with the loss of sensation, foot sensation, that we call in peripheral neuropathy. And when we have this loss of protective sensation, the foot, when it's come under stress, they may develop these calluses. And since patient doesn't feel pain, that can end up with breakdown of skin. And then we don't have even blood flow reaching there to close that wound. And this wound can be infected. So if you get the numbers, unfortunately, every 1-2 seconds, someone develop a foot ulcer. And unfortunately, every 20 seconds, somebody with diabetes undergo an amputation. And this is in 21 centuries with many advances that we have in healthcare. Even in US, we are losing too many limbs. So time's up, and we need to come up with a better solution to prevent this diabetic foot ulcer. Actually, my mentor, David Armstrong, he has a great study and demonstrate that over 80% of those amputations are preventable. But we need to come up with a solution to bring this patient on timely manner to the care. The good news is that the consumer electronics and related technology are increasingly being integrated into every aspect of our lives. And that representing an opportunity for creative solution to prevent this devastating condition or promote ulcer-free days. So I divided some of those technology in 3 categories. The technologies that can help us to triage those who should come to clinic for timely care, empowering patients to be part of the healthcare, and even providing remote care to this individual. So let's talk about triage. If you look at the Oxford Dictionary, by definition of a triage is the process of deciding how seriously ill or injured a person is, so that the most serious cases can be treated first. So we can use triaging for preventing foot ulcer, or if somebody has foot ulcer, we can help them to better treat that one and triage them that whether they should see a specialist like a vascular surgery. So let's give some example. Actually, this is not a science fiction. It might be, that can be done. So first, let's look at the traditional model of care delivery that they have in US and also many other countries. So if somebody has a risk of foot ulcer, ideally they should have regular visit in clinic to look at the risk factors and providing care to not having foot ulcer. But the regular visit could easily overload and already overburden healthcare system. Therefore, that it doesn't work. We are losing many of foot ulcer, and when they're coming to clinic, it's too late. There's not much that we can do about it, and it's too expensive to manage them. I believe that thanks to remote patient monitoring, we can continuously monitoring the risk factors and then making a smart referral. It's not necessary that the doctor say that, okay, I'm see you next month, or I see you the next 6 months, or I see you the next year. Sometimes we should see that, hey, I need to see you next week. So how we can personalize this visit in clinic. And this is possible, at least for foot ulcer. So if you look at the one of the biomarker for development of foot ulcer is inflammation. Inflammation is the earliest signs of the foot ulceration, and technology that can capture inflammation can assist in prediction of diabetic foot ulcer and making a timely referral. If you look at the inflammation, inflammation has 5 signs. The first is redness. You see that when you walking too much, you see that the spot that is almost injured, it becomes red. It has pain. You feel painful. If you have a nail that is damaging and become wound, you see that it's become so painful. And that is a protective mechanism. It's help that you avoid pressure on that spot to let the wound get healed. Swelling, this is another indicator. Loss of function and heat. But the problem in diabetes is that they have neuropathy, they don't feel pain. They have very low level of activity. So by tracking the level of physical activity, you cannot identify this inflammation. They have already swelling, they have edema in lower extremity, and they have poor eyes, so you cannot see redness. So the only marker of inflammation that can remain to measure is heat. And the idea is not novel. Actually, Paul Brand was one of the really pioneer scientists that highlighting the importance of the heat. He said that wounds tend to heat up before they break down into ulcer. And back to 1975, he published a paper and highlighting that the importance of measuring temperature as early prediction of diabetic foot ulcer. It took several decades that my mentor David Armstrong and Larry Lavery, they came up with a very simple, trivial system. They call it temp touch. It's a temperature monitoring that give it to the patient and ask them that check the temperature of your right foot comparing to left foot. If the difference in temperature is greater than 2 degrees centigrade, then call a doctor and reduce your level of activity. And then demonstrate that simple method to empower patient, it can reduce the rate of foot ulcer by 10-fold. And they have several randomized controlled trials that support this area. But despite of this evidence, still temperature didn't use as a part of routine care for the patient. Because you can imagine that it's very hard to engage patients that on daily basis check their temperature. And even if they find a difference, what they can do about it? They become anxious. So that takes another 2 decades that finally we came up with a better solution. We call it this concept of smart mats. Now it's commercialized by a company named Podometrics in Boston. So the idea of smart mat is really similar to bat mat. It's waterproof, has cellular already, so you don't need to be worried that whether there's a Wi-Fi or internet connection there or not. And what we ask is patients simply stand on that mat for 20 seconds. And then the temperature of bottom of feet will be scanned automatically. And then we identify the hot spot. There is no any indicator on this mat because we said that the patient cannot interpret data. So there is a third party. And this third party is like home security that you have, that somebody is coming to your home. It's not directly call 911. It's call a third party. And that third party will investigate. And then if it's needed, it will call 911. Okay, and this is what it does. And we validated this in the multi-center study, and we demonstrate that this method can predict incident of foot ulcer with 37 days lead time. It's sufficient window to make an intervention with accuracy of 97%. The specificity was low. It was 53%. Again, this is a mistake that some of the engineers, they may do. They may say that this is too many false alerts. It's not practical. But actually, it's wrong. Here, later on we demonstrate that sometimes alerting patient is good because it can engage patient. We find out that if you don't have sufficient alerts, sending to the patient may think that the system doesn't work. I'm very healthy. I don't need it anymore. So we need to give them alerts. And since we have a third party that actually coach these data, and now with artificial intelligence, we can manage the alerts. Later on, we thought that maybe also we can make it something that instead of a snapshot, we can continuously monitor temperature with the smart socks. Socks, everybody wears socks. Actually, diabetes, they like wear socks. And we use fiber optic to not only monitor temperature, also monitor pressure and joint angle. So we identify additional risk factor. Even we measure shear force during the measurement. And later on, a company named Siren Care commercialized a similar concept, so become a smart socks of the data. So they are really expanding in US, and I believe in Canada as well. And interestingly, those are not reimbursable in US. So if you remotely monitor some of the physiological metrics and making decision making, that is not reimbursable in the US market. So of course, mobile health also is very valuable. This is a great work done by my boss, Dr. Joseph Mills, that now accepted as a part of the Society of Vascular Surgery. They came up with some simplified app and classification for grading of the severity of the wound. If somebody has a wound, and based on that, they make it a referral that whether that patient can benefit from revascularization or the surgery. Because the problem of the wound is that you may have some wounds that may see that it's very simple. And usually when we have a simple wound, even a wound nurse can take care of it. But sometimes that wounds may be more complicated that nurse may not realize that. And the time is golden here for treating the foot ulcer because every day past, patient may lose more tissue. And when the no tissue left, there's no any choice to amputate that limb. So to avoid this late referral, Dr. Mills came up with that app and simple method to do a referral. Now we are working with a group at the University of Manchester to design using artificial intelligence, something that by picture of the wound, you can easily track the wound and even identify a ischemic wound or some referral to make it a smart referral. So even the patient may not need to come to clinic. They can use that kind of the image processing to make it a smart referral and not missing the data. So let's switch to empowerment. Empowerment means the act of giving someone more control over their own life or the situation they are in. This is very important. I believe that there are a lot of room for innovation here. So if you look at, again, the traditional model of care delivery, in the traditional model, we consider patient as a passive recipient of the care. The patient comes to the doctor give a prescription, some advice, and say that I will see you in 2 weeks. But we don't have any way to understand that patient understood the process of care management. The average of time spending with doctors during consultation is 11 minutes in US. We have a patient old that have cognitive decline, many problems. How we expect that during 11 minutes to understand the care model, and then they come back and say, "Oh, you don't have a compliance to treatment plan." That's why that we have a problem with development. In the new care model, I believe that we need to consider patient and their caregivers, their family members, as an active recipient of the care. We need to empower them to be part of the health ecosystem. Of course, the empowerment is not very easy because it's not just giving them some tool that says, use that tool to monitor them. We have activation, it's learning. How we teach patients to use the technology, that's not very easy. And any technology that wants to develop in this area, they need to think about the training. Is it training? And even the more problem of training is engagement. The patient may use the technology in the first few days, and then they don't have compliance anymore to use them. So you need to think about engagement. And gamification now is a new field in biomedical that is forming, that their job is engage patient on using the technology. So these are not science fiction. Again, there are some cool technology that it's elegantly demonstrate that they can empower patient with diabetes. And this is a product that designed in Canada, actually by a company named Orpex in Calgary, Canada. They came up with a smart insole and a smart watch. This smart insole monitors the pressure on the bottom of the feet. More important is sustained pressure. And through the watch, alert patient. They said that, for example, you're standing for a long period of time on your feet. You're sitting and crossing the leg and cause a high pressure on the bottom of your feet. Maybe you didn't wear correctly your sock that created the pressure on the bottom of your feet. Maybe there is a stone, a small stone inside the shoes that may risky, but since you have neuropathy, you don't feel it, you may not notice them. So it's used as sensory substitution for the patient. We originally testing this study demonstrated the feasibility and proof of concept. And also we work on the method to engage patient. And later on, a group at the Manchester University designed a randomized controlled trial and demonstrate that by this simple tool, we can reduce the rate of ulcer reoccurrence by 71%. So empowerment is possible. I can really make an impact. Imagine it foot ulcer, it costs something between $4,000 to $10,000 to get healed. And we have some cases that took $1 million to save the limb. So it's all pretty expensive. 71% reduction is significant. Again, at the beginning of the talk, I said $1 in $7 spent on the foot, and 1/3 of those costs actually is for management of diabetic foot ulcer. So that is very promising a step forward. This is another company that is Sirencare is in San Francisco that use the concept of smart socks. Now they put in the market. They are expanding their operation in the U.S. market, and it's based on measuring of the temperature continuously. And they demonstrate that it can engage patient and also empower doctors to timely provide care to this patient. We are also working for the patient who has axial foot ulcer. This is a new R1 grant that we got. And we are collaborating with a company named Sensoria in Seattle to making a boot or offloading that patient with diabetic foot ulcer wear them smart. So if you have diabetic foot ulcer, the most established or standard of care for this patient is give them a boot that relieves the pressure on the ulcerated spot. So the patient can continue to be ambulatory but protect their feet. Again, this patient, they don't feel pain. So if you have an ulcer on the bottom of our feet, we don't walk on it. We cannot. It's very painful. But the patient with neuropathy, they don't feel pain, so they can walk on their wounds. So what this smart boot does is very simple, an accelerometer, but there is a smart algorithm that in real time, through the clot age calculation, estimate that whether the patient wearing this offloading or not when they walk. And through a smart watch, notify them. They have several gamification to engage patient. And also they have an elegant remote patient monitoring with very simple indication that for doctors, they can see that whether patient has compliance to that therapy or not. Even we report the level of the harmful daily physical activity. We encourage them to have enough active, but not too much active, that delay the wound healing process. This ongoing study, we have very promising earlier results. Just last week, we published the first results. That was our first paper in 2021. It's published in Diabetes Science and Technology that described this concept. So in the remote monitoring, I don't have time, but we have a book and also a review paper that we discuss a lot of innovation in technology side for care delivery remotely for patient for actual foot ulcer. But I would like that in the next 15 minutes that I have time, Human, please stop me, or Mohsen, if I'm talking too much, but I'm guessing that I need to have maybe another 15 minutes to cover another topic about.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're good.
Okay, great. So this is another important condition like diabetes, and this is Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Roughly worldwide, 70 million people living with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, and nearly every year, 10 million new cases with dementia is diagnosed. It's pretty expensive. This is a infographic published by the World Alzheimer Report. It's outdated, it's back to 2015. But it's really a wake-up call. It suggests that if dementia was a country, it would be the 8th largest economy in the world. This is hugely costly. Today, dementia costs over $1 trillion US. And with the aging of the population, it becomes worse. These patients need to become independent, and also we need to reduce burden of the caregivers. There is a report by Harvard Business School that suggests that many of the young workers leave their job to care for their old parents with Alzheimer's disease, and estimated that the cost of the caregivers is exceeding $234 billion in the US. Even many of the companies now, they are thinking about it. If they want to keep their skilled workers, they need to find a better way to provide support to their parents of those skilled workers. So let's talk about some of the gaps that our team trying to tackle. The problem that we have for Alzheimer's disease is that when we detect the cognitive decline that's different than from normal aging decline, it's too late. There's not much that we can do for the patient. Ideally, we need to predict long before when the cognitive decline is manifested. We need to detect this Alzheimer's disease. We need to detect mild cognitive impairment. And even we need to have a very good granularity to see that what are the risk factors that burn cognitive reserve in people with dementia. Whether type of medication that they are using, maybe it is a side effect of medication, maybe depression, poor sleep, not having exposure to the natural light. The type of disease, we are hearing about COVID-19. COVID-19, it not think that it can lead to long COVID that can burn the cognitive reserve and may accelerate transition to Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So if you have a device with with good time resolution to capture those fluctuations, maybe we can identify them and we can reverse them. But that needs to be done early on. Ideally, and this is a dream, that or a smartwatch that not measure everything, or heart rates, or heart rate variability, stress, or sleep, and now blood pressure and continuous glucose, maybe can detect us cognitive function or cognitive reserve that we have. That may look science fiction, but actually there are many research that suggests that could become a reality. So this is a great paper published by Verghese more than 20 years ago that suggests if you look at pattern of walking or gait, how the person walk, we can predict transition to Alzheimer's disease, dementia, by 20 years lead time. Imagine about that. And now we can measure everything about the gait, and not only gait, the pattern of the activity. This is a study that we have done. We designed a pendant sensor known as battery life of 6 months. It's waterproof, and it can monitor a very fine-grained information about the physical activity. It can detect that what is the quality of the sleep, what type of the activity is doing, even the posture. We can detect that whether somebody is sitting or standing. And we can look at the sedentary activity and many more. We can detect that person rise from a chair, how long it takes for rising from a chair. When rise from a chair, how immediately start walking. And actually, we demonstrate, these earlier results that we published, we demonstrate that by looking at this pattern of the activity and with machine learning, we can identify who has cognitive frailty. And we can track them with their good time resolution to see that whether somebody who is, for example, in healthy aging with transition to physical frail or cognitive impairment. So we can detect those kind of patterns. So it's very promising. Even we went a step further. We got another grant to improve that design to create a smart home environment for people who are at the risk of Alzheimer's disease. We monitor physical activity, but we use a series of the tags, like this tag, that we attach on different objects of interest. So we can identify that the home, the person, for example, open the refrigerator door, microwave door, is used oven, it used this cabinet door. And then based on the activation and pattern of the activation, we can identify the activity of daily living that the person is doing and complexity of activity of daily living. For example, whether they are doing cooking, and whether this cooking is a scrambling egg or no, it's making stew that is more complex. This change in complexity of cooking, there are several studies that demonstrate that that could be a strong indicator of Alzheimer's disease. Somebody who decline cognitive function, the way that it cook becomes simpler and simpler. This ongoing study, we have very promising results. It's on, if you know somebody, in particular in Houston, and want to be part of this study, please refer us to this clinicaltrial.gov that describes this study. We went even a step further. We said that, okay, we have this monitoring, but let's make a closed loop. But let's use this information to help care coordination for people with dementia and help them to continue living independently, being less dependent on the caregivers. So we created a smart agenda. It's like Google agenda that you have, but that difference that whatever you put in on a schedule, it can smartly remind you and also check that whether you did that task or not. For example, there is a time to taking medication. This is a voice enabled. With your voice remind patient that there is a time to take medication. With some simple comprehensive picture that's coming through this app. It's like Alexa show. We call it Neely. And then even we can detect that whether patient interact with the medication box and take that medication. Whether they are doing their chore, whether they are engaging in social activity. This is very important. And also is a companion app for care coordination that they can simplify visualization, that whether their loved one, they're doing this task. Some of them, they have paid caregiver. So they want to see that whether that other caregivers, they provide support to the patient and follow the task. And also we are adding some simplify about this call between circle of the caregivers, easy communication with the doctors, reminding the appointment, sharing the pictures, audio, book, as well as the music and many more. This is ongoing. We plan to submit very soon the earlier results. Again, if you have any loved one living in Houston area and would like to benefit and try this care coordination, please let us know. This is the last example that I would like to highlight. As I mentioned, there are many activities that's happening here. This is the beauty of working as part of interdisciplinary and impact partnership with industry. We have also a new grants that we're trying to make exercise, and not any exercise, cognitive exercise, accessible to people with Alzheimer's disease. We know that this is individual. If you're living in Europe, there is a good public transport. So the patient can go to rehabilitation, can benefit from exercise, but this patient cannot drive easily. They are highly dependent on caregivers. And interestingly, exercise is reimbursable for these people, but they cannot benefit from it. So the way that we work, we use our tablet, this voice enabled, it's coach patient virtually how to use sensor and attaching on different joint of interest. And it's like a game. It started with very simple game, visualized game that then they master like a game, the level is advanced, and we expose them to more complex game. There's a telemedicine enabled that's highly secure that the doctors on weekly basis, for instance, if they're a part of telerehabilitation, they can reach out, they can educate them, they can check their progress, they can check their adherence to exercise, and even they can prescribe more complex exercise. We are using gamification to better engage patient, and most importantly, to engage the cognitive exercise. We know that interactive exercise is also activate brain, is improve the perception of the body awareness. This is some simple example. We use the sensor on the foot and we transfer the foot of the subject as a joystick. So by movement of the foot, they can play a simple game. For example, navigate a bird through the obstacles. This is aircraft that they are using some exercise to activate the calf muscles. This can be used for prevention of thrombolysis, DVT. We are not using actually for COVID patient in the hospital as well to help to prevent DVT in this patient and prevent hospital-acquired weakness. And also we can provide actually more Advanced exercise, like resistive exercise, this video, I don't know that it doesn't work, but simply they can bike and navigate a bird through different obstacles, and many other variety of exercise. When you talk about exercise, some people, they feel that for exercise, they need to go and run on treadmill or going to the gym. But even those simple exercises are very effective. We attach some EMG sensor on the calf muscle, so you can see in real time the EMG activation when they're playing the game. It's very effective to activate the muscles in lower extremity. And even we can target some practical muscles that the patient has weakness. The wearable technology, that's the part that can really help us to really target the practical joint and practical muscles and design a game to really exercise that motion. We have now several ongoing trials that we are testing actually those innovation. So let's say end of my talk with some of take-home away points that I would like to highlight here. Healthcare is undergoing a technology transformation. It's good to be a biomedical engineer today because there's a lot that's happening in the healthcare. But just you need to better understand the unmet needs and team up with the right doctors to guide you on that direction. Recent advances in digital health technologies can triage high-risk patients. I give at this example for diabetic foot ulcer, but you can find this example for any conditions. Even triaging can help us that who can benefit from telemedicine consultation. There's a great work that my postdoc is doing that actually is about that one, triaging for telemedicine consultation or consultation in the clinic. The technology are still in infancy, but it's really fast developing. The technology can now support the use of technology like wearable technology, digital health to improve self-knowledge about risk factors and also engage them more in their own care or promoting self-care. And telemedicine consultation, it's now also expanding. And it's not only for wound care and beyond of that. And it's not just telemedicine. I call it the telehealth, because like this is a smart mat, we can benefit from them and can help us to prevent some of the condition that is devastating the life of our loved one, like the limb amputation. Of course, this is a teamwork. This is a picture just before pandemic, and the pandemic hit. I'm very lucky to have a great research staff as part of my team and a fantastic collaborator and many industry that make this happen. So I stop here. And thank you so much again for listening to me. And I'm looking forward for answering the questions.
Well, thank you very much, Bijan, for your inspiring and very interesting presentation and talk. And it's very impressive to see how you could put together such a dynamic team and collaborators. Congratulations. So we'd like to remind everyone that if you have any questions, please use the Ask a Question box, which is down there. You can see the box right at the bottom panel of your screen. Besides call to action and polls between them. I'll start with some questions from the audience, Bijan, and then I'll ask a couple of questions that I have if we still have some time to continue. So the first question is from Isaac, and that's about the smart sock technology that you described. I think in the first project that you talked about. So the question is that socks have a tendency to be a source of fungal infection for many members of the community living centers in my hospital. So Isaac is apparently a medical doctor. Thanks, Isaac, for asking this question. Can your smart sock tech be sanitized using traditional cleaning methods?
It's excellent questions. Actually, the socks are washable, and the company that now commercialize these socks, they give actually 7 pair of the socks coming in the box, and every day they use the socks, they wash them, and then every month they renew these socks. The socks by itself is pretty cheap. There is a sensor that snap on top of the sock, so when you want to wash it, you remove the sensor and just you wash the socks like regular socks that you're using. This is again the progress of a smart tech side that become cheaper and cheaper. You can monitor those information, and just the RF component and the electronic component, you can easily remove them. And even that one, you can sanitize that sock.
Awesome. So Isaac, I hope you received your answer. So the next question is from Mahdi. If the textile for socks is made by a safe biomaterial with self-sanitizing characterization to inhibit fungal or bacterial infections, are you interested to test such additional tool in your medical device?
Absolutely. We love to partner with anybody who has this idea. I mean, when I was actually in the engineering school, we used to design the sensors, but then I realized that there are many other teams that they are designing elegant sensors. We have now electronic tattoo sensor and many innovation that's coming in this area. The gap that I realized is that we need to test it in real world condition, the patient population. And actually my team now is involved in that kind of the research, that we partner with industry, we partner with engineering schools, we use the technology. There are some twists that need to be done. There are some challenges that we need to address. Again, engagement of the patient is one of them. Using the right terminology, that they understand the perception of benefit. This is another one. On that one, I would like to share another experience that we have. The very first device that designed was ultimately fall detector. That later on become commercialized, and now Best Buy Health acquired that technology, and now they use it at large. Over 7 million people, it seems that now you're using that ultimate fall detector. But when they came up with ultimate fall detector, the terminology that we use is that system detects that you fell down. And that wasn't successful, just using that term. But then there was a twist on that one that say that technology detects that you fell and you cannot get up. Simply that one changed the perception of the benefit, and it created a huge success. So sometimes the reality is that you have a cool technology, but you need to use in real world to see that how these people, the target population, perceive them. And this is what usually we help. And also another one is that what kind of the clinically meaningful information we can extract from this data that would be useful for the doctors as well as for the patient.
Wonderful. So the next question is from Dr. Indu Sharma, who is apparently from Canada. Is there any specific tool or any existing model or any software by which we can correlate or communicate real-time patient data with machine learning to predict future trends? They're new in this field, so they want your advice.
I believe that, again, data science and big data, this is a huge need in this area, because all of those technology, I mentioned the smart socks, the smart insoles, smart mat, but there are many more. The smart boots that I mentioned, we stream tons of data to cloud. Sometimes we are creating some very simplified message to guide patient, like for example, for a smart insole, there was a visualization that there is a high pressure on their big toe, so the patient can check it, and saying that whether, for example, there is some object there, or maybe checking that whether there is a callus or redness, so they can understand. But it should be very simple for the patient if we are engaging them to take action on that one. But there are a lot of information that we need for our doctor. Doctor is already overwhelmed with electronic health records. Definitely, we don't want to add many additional data, but these kind of like colorful information mentioned, that showing that patient has like this red, yellow, green, has a good compliance to the therapy, has a safe, healthy behavior, activity behavior. Those are very important information, and definitely with machine learning, you can identify those that we call an index of the health, like this wound index that I mentioned, that through the app it can create it. But there are a lot of new room in this innovation. We are receiving a lot of data, and we don't know what we can do about it.
Wonderful. So speaking of data, then I have a couple of questions regarding of the data that you're generating, and there are two specific questions that I have. One is how to store the data and then prevent issues associated with cybersecurity and data security. That would be a concern, and the privacy issues. That would be a concern for the end users. Because they don't, at the same time, although they want this information or their life to be much easier, but at the same time, they don't want their someone to hack into their personal data and then get access. And this is not related to wearable devices. It's just a concern for, like, in general, telehealth and virtual care. So your comments on that.
Thanks for asking these questions. Excellent, actually, question. Is even beyond our patient privacy in the healthcare system, there is a challenge of liability. If you have some data and let's say that doctors take action on that data, but doesn't provide the right action, you open up the door for lawsuit. And actually one of the major challenge of adoption of the technology in healthcare is this liability concern. I remember about 10 years ago, we used a sensor to that. It's the idea is everything that in the hospital is connected to the body, like EKG monitoring, etc. They're using by a simple sensor that it can remove. They having access to that data, the collection of the data. And I went to the CEO of the hospital and said, that's a very cool project. We want to use it in our hospital, and showing that how we can improve patient care and personalize patient care in the hospital. Right away, our CEO said that no, because that company claimed that we detect sleep apnea, we can detect pressure ulcer, we can detect fall, we can do, and many, many things. They think that as engineers, we tend to measure many things, but said, no, I mean, if you report that a patient has a sleep apnea and the doctor doesn't make an action on the sleep apnea on the hospital, then it's open up the lawsuit. If the patient has a poor outcome, they say that because of that kind of the condition. So first of all, you need to understand what is our target application. Narrow down, be specific, and discard any other data. You don't want to put in those data. Actually, the way that ultimately bring that sensor to the hospital, we block many of those data information to the doctors, so to reduce the liability risk for the doctors. And we target one of the pain that we have in hospital, that was prevention of the fall in the hospital setting, and it was a very successful project. Ultimately, Medtronic acquired that company because of that success project. And the other one is definitely, as you mentioned, is a data security. Definitely, you don't want to keep the data that created this problem. At the VA, there is no any data that recorded in a cloud. The VA, they modify, they use iPad. It's the same aspect, but nothing is going and saving the cloud. Only the time that we have direct interaction with the patient, that's the only way that data is transferred very securely. No any data is recorded. And that is really important. Currently, biggest challenge that we have in the US for using wearable technology is that how we can bring in the data and integrate in electronic health record like Epic. And none of the electronic health record, they want to open up the door to accept that data because they still have a concern about the security and safety. And in the US, and I'm sure in like Canada, HIPAA is a huge problem. It can have a significant consequences if you have a data breach of the health information of the patient. It's ongoing. As I mentioned, some company, they figure it out, like for example, for temperature. So the only thing that we have is just the final indicator of incident of foot ulcer, and they narrow down to that kind of the application. And they create it very secure, that is a third party that only will have access to it and can have interaction for the patient. For care coordination, as I mentioned, we just created a connection with circle of the caregivers. And actually, we realized that this is also another interesting need for the people with Alzheimer's disease, because they don't want to receive a call from somebody that is not in the circle of the trustee, because they are unfortunately the subject to scammers. And the fact that even that system creating a closed loop, that only people that with high security is coming to that circle of the communication, they can only communicate with the individual, and even them, they can define that what kind of the access to the data they have it. But in summary, yes, if you are designing any technology target the health, definitely need to think very well about the cybersecurity issues, the amount of the data that you want to share, the amount of data even you want to save on the cloud. That definitely need to be considered.
Awesome, and that's probably one of the one of the items that regulatory bodies as well they're concerned about, and then they would like to make sure that the data is safe. So I also have another question about the patient compliance and especially in the aging population. So typically and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. Typically, when you talk to the senior people, they really hate using these electronic devices, right? Yesterday, I had a chat with a lady who is also. So I learned that it was a Canadian actually lady living in the States, and then she said that I like to see things on paper. So how do you deal with these kinds of views from the more senior population who really don't like using electronic devices and more complexity in their lives?
Excellent point, actually. Of course, I remember that in 2000, I attended in telecommunication exposition in Geneva. And there, for the first time, I saw a smartphone that can take a picture of us. And at that time, we were in the line. We were so excited because we could have a digital picture of ourselves and then email it to ourselves. This is 2000. It's not a long time ago. And now imagine that every of us, we have a cell phone in the pocket, easily take the picture. And even we are using for photography, not necessarily for communication. So the technology is changing. I mean, Bill Gates has an interesting quote that always we overestimate the change that's happening in 2 years and underestimate the change that occur in the 10 years. Don't be lured into inaction. So that's the reality. I mean, many of those technology, yes, might be too early, but the next 10 years, you will see that when it become largely used, everybody become familiar with that technology. But having said that, it's very important that when you are designing technology for a particular target population, to consider the model of adaptation. We have a great model that named technology acceptance model. I highly encourage you, if you would like to design technology, to read that model. So they have several important components of this technology that you need to think about it if you would like to successfully translate it to the market. One is a perception of the benefit. And Elon Musk has interesting quote about perception of benefit. If your perception of benefits 10, 20% better than what they used to use, they never change it to new technology. There is not enough incentive. It should be very, very high change and benefit for the new concept that the people adopt the new technology. So perception of the benefit is important. There is some way of surveying about the perception of benefit. And now for every project that we are doing, we are using a good survey to understand that how they see the perception of benefit. Sometimes, like the fall detection, you need to tweak the way that you're presenting the idea to improve the perception of benefit. The second is the perception of ease of use. That is really important. If there are multiple steps to use a technology, nobody will use it. In fact, in the aging population, they have cognitive decline. Even a smartphone is very hard for them because they need to open up the tag. So, for example, you're seeing that the technology that you use for older adults, they are designing on the kiosk mode. That everything is a single step. Just turn on the cell phone and right away they are going to the app of telemedicine. The VVA video connected we have is like that one. It's an iPad, but it's not a regular iPad. When they turn on the iPad, it's open up telemedicine interface. We easily communicate with technology. There are some companies that also figured out that one. So there is a company that recently was acquired by Best Buy that they come up with elegant solution like a shoebox that they put in the gadget of variable like the blood pressure measurements, heart rate monitoring, weight measurement. They send it, and simply when they turn on with the tablet, automatically disconnect. And there is no any additional steps need to be done by these individuals. So the only things that they need is turn on the device. And that's it. Everything is happening automatically. This is very important about perceived ease of use. And then ultimately look at the other concern, like the anxiety of data sharing. This is a huge problem. You need to understand that. There's a trade-off. Some of the patients, they agree to give up some privacy to gain independency. Okay, so if you have a good perception benefit that, for example, hey, you are Alzheimer's disease, you put something on the oven, you turn on the gas and you didn't turn it on. This is a risk for you and for the surrounding. If you're repeating that one, you lose the ability to live at your home. You should go to residential home. But if you're using that technology, it can guide you and can minimize that risk. So you lose some privacy, but in return, you get independency. Or the same thing about the finance. If they are writing a wrong check, they can lose their ability to control their finance. So they may lose some privacy and some associated risk, but in return, they can get a huge benefit that is having the control of their finance, despite that they have a cognitive decline. So you need to look at all those trade-offs and then decide that whether it's okay or not. There are some companies like Best Buy that invested heavily on this area. Best Buy has their warehouse almost near to every American within 10 miles. And their job even to educate patients how to use the technology. They are going to the patient home and install the technology. And they demonstrate that this model is working. Still, we have a long way to go, but we are seeing, at least during pandemic, it seems many of those adoption and scale up has been accelerated significantly.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have a question from Nafisa, our audience. What is your idea about the aging topic in the industry? How is the relationship between aging worker competence factors, like morphological characteristics and trainings related to self-perception of competence, job complexity, and job satisfaction? It's a long question, so if you like,
it's an excellent question. Again, as I mentioned, like Auguste Comte said, demography is destiny, and we are dealing with aging population. So definitely, if you're biomedical engineers and you would like to build your career, maybe you want to look at aging topic. And it's a huge problem. And the industries also recognize that. There are a lot of industries that are investing heavily on aging population. And when I'm saying the changing of demography, we used to have, before baby boomers, we have Asian population that were relatively poor. But the baby boomers, they have a significant economy advantage as well compared to the previous aspect. And they pay, they can afford, and they are open also more to technology than the previous generation. Another change is reimbursement. In US, we know that if you are doing a medical device, if it's not reimbursed by insurance, you don't have any chance, honestly. Consumer electronics may not necessarily work. Some portion of the people may adopt, but not for all the population. Like a diabetes population, majority, they might be on the poor class condition, poor economical aspect. But there is a trend even in the US to improve their reimbursements, and that attracts many industries. For example, we are now talking about in the US is one of the healthcare choice that it's heavily oriented. I believe that in that bill that it passed in Congress recently, they dedicated, if I'm not mistaken, over 200 $1 million to really think about adoption of technology at home. And there are several new reimbursement code that is happening. We have now value-based care that also have the announcing in 2020 that they're considering some technology that can improve outcomes for underserved population, like patient with diabetes. And they can get direct reimbursements from CMS. So all of them is happening, and And that's why that is no maybe surprise that we are hearing from Google, Apple, Microsoft that they're targeting aging population. They are targeting technology that can help them. The retail industry like Walmart and Best Buy, they build a business operation around supporting aging population. And that, I believe, that's the future and can resolve some of the current hurdle that we have for reimbursement to adoption of the technology.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Najafi, for your very interesting, very inspiring talk. So I have no more questions, and in the interest of time, I just wanted to thank you again for your very nice presentation. I don't know if Hooman has any questions to ask.
No, I just want to echo the same thing. I already, I enjoyed a lot your talk, Dr. Najafi. I learned a lot of the new things. Some of them, like really low-hanging fruits, and some of them, as you said, like science fiction, but it's going to happen soon. So thank you so much. And it was a pleasure to have you with us today. And I want to also thank the audience for joining us today. And for those who missed the presentation, we will post this talk on our YouTube channel also, or anyone who wants a refresher for this talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mohsen, you can finish the session.
I really appreciate again the opportunity. Again, bravo to both of you that during this pandemic, creating this platform to actually disseminate the knowledge, engaging people, and fostering collaboration. I went to YouTube and listened to some of the prior talks. Amazing. I will reach out to some of the speakers to hopefully collaborate. The future is interdisciplinary collaboration, and we need to bring all the people from different disciplines to work together to make an impact in the field. Thank you again, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Bijan. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.